Hey YouTube, Kevin Clear here with a knife video for you. Today I've got a pretty cool blade. This is the SOG Seal Pup Elite. It is the plain edge version and it is the black coated blade version. Now, by way of introduction, I want to say two things. One is why I bought this knife, and two is a little bit about the background of it and why there's some hype about that. Okay, so I bought this knife to be a medium duty fixed blade. I have a heavy chopping fixed blade, and I was finding that when I'd go into the woods with it, I'd end up using my folding knife a lot. By the way, my EDC today is the Benchmade Griptilian, but I'd end up using my pocket knife a lot because the SHF9 was not a great slicer. It wasn't good at like carving or slicing tasks. It was only good at chopping tasks, which is fine. But I wanted something that would be more of a cutter, and this fit the bill very nicely. I really like the look of it, I like the size, I like the weight, and so this is what I went with, the sheath and the knife together. Let's get into size and weight anyway. Oh wait, hold on, time out, 1 second. I said I was going to mention history, and I'll do that now, then I'll tell you how much this weighs. But let's point out that a lot of reviewers, and if you read like different stuff from SOG, they'll point out that the background on this knife is that the larger size, the full size SOG Seal something, maybe the Seal Force or the Seal, whatever it is, please comment with me if you know the name of the full size version of this. It won a contest where a bunch of different fixed blades were given to the Navy SEALs to see which one they preferred the most. And the SOG won, which is cool, right? That's kind of a neat piece of history. However, having said that, this knife is a shrunken down version of the blade that won, and it's an upgraded version of the original SOG Seal Pup. So there's been quite a few changes to this knife compared to that first knife that actually won. And so although there's the history is kind of cool, I wouldn't, who knows what the Navy SEALs would actually say about this blade, right? It doesn't really cross over. When you shrink a blade down, you totally change everything about it, right? You change the weight, you change how it functions, you change too many things to, legitimately claim that the Navy SEALs sort of endorsed this knife, okay? So I wanted to say that by one other thing about introduction. Now, I really like the blade shape and the size and the weight and find it very useful. So this review will be about whether or not I find this to be a knife I would recommend. And overall, I do like it, okay? Now let's get into size and weight. This knife is 9 3/8 inches. The blade is just under 5 inches. The handle is about 4.5 inches, just under 4.5 inches, okay? The weight on this is really good. 5.4 ounces. That's very lightweight, and in fact the balance is very nice. I find, whatever grip you take, it's very useful, and there is jimping that goes all the way along the blade. I'm really not sure why that is. This part is really good because I find I've done a lot of stuff with my thumb sort of up here, carving, whittling type of stuff. This works really well. This would also work well if, let's say, you're skinning out an animal and you want that fine control. You're using this portion of the blade. I know I'm getting into grip, but let's bring it back to size and weight. 5.4 ounces is really, really good for a fixed blade. I have folders that weigh quite a bit more than that, right? Add the sheath to this so that you are getting the total number that you're actually adding to your loadout, and you're sitting at about 9 ounces, okay? Still not bad, and you gotta keep in mind that there's a difference between this and this, okay? If this weighs 9 ounces and I put it in my pocket, that's ridiculous. It's not practical. However, hanging this from a belt is much more doable, and even more so if you're putting it on a pack or somewhere else, okay? So that 9 ounces is actually really good for a fixed blade knife with a sheath. Now, I don't have anything in here, but there is this front pouch, and I've put stuff in here before. I put a small multi-tool in here, I put a sharpening stone. I don't have anything in here now because I really can't decide what I want to do with this. I may actually put like a mini survival kit in here. That's kind of where my head is at now. And so, you'll have to maybe check back with me on what I end up doing with this little pouch. Although it is large enough that, I was able to get a multi-tool in here. I was able to get Now the sharpening stone, the problem with it is it bounced around too much. It was actually too small. But it's not a bad size little pouch on the front and does add some versatility. So now, I'd like to set this up so if I strap it to my belt, I've got a lot of the stuff that I need if I'm, let's say, going camping or hiking or whatever, just kind of one swift move. All right, so that's size and weight. Let's talk about for a moment this sheath, and then we'll get into the knife. All right, I know, show us the knife. Well, I'm going to get the boring stuff out of the way first. It is a ballistic nylon, very good quality. Everything is riveted and pinned and double stitched. No issues at all with sort of quality control type of stuff. And also no issues at all with ergonomics. The knife comes in and out very easily. I've carried this lots on my belt. I have no problem getting the knife. I have no problem putting it back. All the stuff that you care about on a sheath, this does really well. One thing I will say is I like the holes in the top and bottom, because if you wanted to, you could run paracord through here and tie it to anything, right? Just stick it anywhere on your backpack or on your person, and it's going to work for that. I do kind of like, I haven't bothered because the knife isn't that heavy. On my Charade though, the SCHF9, I always run a string through this bottom and wrap it around my leg. It's doable on this because of these holes, but I haven't done it. I find this knife is quite light, so I don't find it swinging around and bouncing around like crazy, so I haven't worried about it. Okay, so that's the sheath. There is a Kydex version, and I don't know, essentially all the Kydex version does is means you could tip it this way and still carry it, okay? And actually, let me just demonstrate here. You could theoretically do that with this. I don't think you're going to lose it. I probably wouldn't, just for my own peace of mind. If I was going to stick this on the back of my backpack or something where I couldn't see it, I'd put it in this orientation, okay? I understand the value of being able to kind of reach behind your back and pull the blade out this way. If you're planning to use it that way, that may be a good reason to go with the Kydex version of this sheath. But for most users, I don't think the nylon is going to be an issue at all. I actually think it functions really, really well. All right, let's put that aside and get to what everyone really cares about, which is the knife. I'm going to zoom in here a bit so I can talk about the blade and handle and different things like that. There's some stuff here that I want you to be able to see. So there's the knife in a closer view. Let's start off talking about the blade. The blade is 5 inches of AUS-8 steel. It's fairly thick. You've got a good 3/16 of an inch or so here. Now, it is a hollow grind, and I really like the hollow grind in a knife for this purpose, okay? I'm planning to use this for cutting tasks. And a hollow grind means you get a finer edge, and therefore it's going to cut better. I would say also that if you are someone who's using this for defense or for combat, you're a soldier or something, the hollow grind also makes it a better slicer than if this was a flat grind. And the flat grind, of course, would add strength at the edge, but the hollow grind, although it reduces the strength, I don't think it reduces it to the point you've got to worry about it, but it does make it a significantly better cutter. And remember, I was buying this knife as something to cut with, and so I was really, the hollow grind was one of the things I really wanted. The tip is very fine. This is going to penetrate very well. Again, something you may want if you're a soldier or police officer, you're using this for combat. But as a cutter, it just means that you don't have a lot of material kind of interfering with fine work that you may be doing if you are, in the woods or working around the house or whatever. Okay, now the top swedge adds to the fineness of that point and, allows us to penetrate fairly nicely. Not a major, it's primarily aesthetic. Now, I want to speak to this jimping on the back. I'm going to turn it this way. If I catch the light right, you should be able to see it right about there. So there's all this jimping along the back here, okay? You can probably see it even if I turn the knife this way. This portion I actually use, okay? I do this kind of thing a lot when I'm doing sort of finer work. I cut up a bunch of some material the other day. I was out in the garage and I just wanted to cut some stuff down to throw it away. And I did use this grip and I found it worked really well. Now, out here, I don't see quite as much purpose. Even if you wanted to, let's say you wanted to use this to notch a stick. Okay, you're gonna notch out a piece to wrap a thread around to make a tent peg, let's say. I think this distance would still be long enough. I actually think this jimping up here is just extra work, an extra process that doesn't actually need to be done. You could have put jimping here, and it would have both functioned as a place for your thumb to grip into the knife, as well as a place that you could use to do some notching of a tree branch or whatever. Okay, so that's the blade. Very useful blade, I think. You know, it's a pretty standard. You got lots of flat edge here for anything you need a flat edge for. Then you've still got lots of belly and a very fine tip. So overall, and by the way, in a blade this length, you're often going to find that, okay? So you've got enough belly, you've got enough flat to do most anything that you could want to do with the blade. So there you go, that's the blade. I find it just really useful. I've used it for all kinds of things, everything from cutting cardboard to you know, fruit and food prep. I've done a bunch of food prep with that. I know it's not designed for food prep, but I find doing food prep helps me, you know, mentally get a feel for how this blade is going to perform. And so although maybe I wouldn't use it for something where, let's put it this way, I was cutting apples, and a lot of times the knife would get halfway through the apple and the apple would break apart because you have quite a thick piece of steel in this portion, okay? So all of this is quite thick, and that means you're going to be doing a lot of this type of stuff. If you're cutting through, you're really going to be pushing that material apart by the time you get to this portion of the blade, okay? Just keep that in the back of your mind. If you want a really fine slicer, you know, something like the Ritter Griptilian is going to perform a little better. Now, that's the blade. One last thing I do want to say, this little cutout here, it is sort of a sharpening cutout rather than a choil. Let me show you. I'm going to be careful and put my finger there. See how my finger is actually on part of the blade? So I would never do this if I was actually cutting something, because what I'd be cutting is myself. All right, so that would be, I would actually kind of like to see this just a teeny bit longer. Now, you can't win here, because I know on the original Seal Pup, it was longer, and guess what? They got complaints. Why is this so long? I would have liked the extra blade. So you can't win. Just hold it like this and you're fine. I haven't, by the way, although I say, hey, I'd like to see a little choil here, I haven't been cutting anything and said, boy, I really wish I had that choil because I can't cut this. Everything I've tried to do, this kind of grip or this kind of grip or this kind of grip, has worked just fine. All right, now, since we're talking about grip, let's move to the handle. Interesting that we don't have to talk about this portion of the knife at all, because there's no deployment or lockup. Feels like we're missing something in the video, right? So let's go to the handle. The handle is GFN, which is just another fiber reinforced plastic. Okay, there's lots of them out there, FRN, GRN, GFN. They're fairly similar. They're tough material, okay? And I've actually found that G10 overuse, and I've got a bunch of cold steels, you guys know that. After a few months, the G10 softens up on your cold steel knife. FRN or GRN or, you know, any of these reinforced plastics, they tend to keep their structure a little longer. In my experience, they keep it forever. I've never had GRN that over time started to feel different, okay? And that's going to be the case with this. It's very grippy. It's very comfortable. I've used it with gloves and without. The winter's kind of ending here, so now I'm able to use bare hands for a lot more things. Now, if I could offer one complaint, it would be this. So if I use this thumb ramp here, notice the thumb ramp and the front choil. If I lock my thumb and my forefinger into that, now look where the pommel is. See how there's not quite enough pommel for, I guess this is like a saber grip. It would be nice to have another ½ inch right here. That's that ½ inch. Don't make the blade any longer, just leave it there. But a ½ inch right here on the end of the handle would make this grip very nice. What I end up doing is choking up and using this grip for most cutting tasks with my thumb up on the blade. Now the blade is nice and thick here, see that? So when you have your thumb up here and you're pushing, you've got lots to push against, okay, which makes it more comfortable. So that's the handle. There is a nice big lanyard hole. I don't put lanyards on my knives. I have a couple that I put lanyards on. I always end up cutting them off because I'm just don't like it. So there is a lanyard hole if you really want that, and maybe for, you know, bushcrafting or something, you'd want to put a bright orange lanyard back here so you could find the knife if you lost it or dropped it. All right, so that's my take on the SOG Seal Pup Elite. Very useful knife. I'm going to back up here so that you're not right in my face. There we go, and sort of give an overview and finish this off. So there you go. That's the SOG Seal Pup Elite. Very good knife. I don't, you know, there's not anything really negative that I have to say about any part of it, except for the handle could be just a little bit longer. The retention in the sheath is good. The weight is good. This knife is essentially, now I did my research first, and so I kind of knew what I was getting. But this knife is pretty much exactly what I expected to be when I purchased it, and I've been quite happy with it. If you're looking for sort of a fixed blade, so you're going to get lots of that. You're going to get a strong, capable fixed blade that is a good slicer, a good cutter. This is a really, really good option. You know, there are a lot of sort of heavy-duty fixed blades out there, and because they're heavy-duty, you know, they're super thick at the edge, which means when you got to cut something, it's like a laborious task trying to carve wood or any kind of fine work. They're almost useless, and that's, you know, that's one of the challenges I found with my SDHF 9, which I don't think I've reviewed. Anyway, this knife is not that way. You've got very nice, thick, heavy-duty blade stock, but because of that fairly deep hollow grind, you get a nice fine edge that can actually cut, which is one of the things I like to do with my knives. So overall, I think this is a great knife, especially for the price. I don't know, I didn't comment much on the AUS-8 steel, but SOG does a great job on their AUS-8. It performs better than most AUS-8 that you're kind of used to. All right, so very, very good blade. Not too bad in terms of price point. You know, I got this at for a good, really good deal, but you can find these for, you know, between $50 and $100. And for that price, you're getting a really, really good knife. The only thing that I will say it can't do, or it can't do well, is like chopping, okay? This is not, it's not heavy enough at 5.4 ounces, and the blade doesn't carry a lot of weight out to the tip at 5.4 ounces to be a chopper. That's not what I bought it for, and I wouldn't recommend it for that, but for everything else that you would want to do with a fixed blade, whether you're defending your life in combat, whether you are, you know, building a shelter in the woods, or preparing wood for a fire, or, you know, cutting up cardboard, just this knife is going to do all that stuff really well. It's a very good cutter, and it doesn't sacrifice much in terms of strength. So overall, I really like this blade, and you probably will too. Talk to you later, YouTube.